The yacht is silver from bow to stern, 282 feet of brushed aluminum cutting across the Mediterranean like something out of a science fiction film. Hollywood will put this exact boat on screen across from a man named Bond. It is 1980, and every shipyard in Europe is watching one vessel. Her name is Nabila, built for a Saudi billionaire who wanted the largest private yacht the world had ever seen. The yard that built her, a company called Benetti, has stood in Italy since 1873. It has built ships for kings, and weeks after delivering the most famous yacht on earth, Benetti is bankrupt. Nobody in Italian boat building wants to touch a company that just went broke building a masterpiece. 5 years later, a man writes the check anyway. He is 38 years old. He started his company at 21 with money from a nightclub. His name is Paolo Vitelli, and the small rental business he built out of nothing is about to swallow the most famous shipyard in the world. Rewind to 1947. Vitelli is born in Turin into a family full of entrepreneurs, though his own father has little faith in him. School does not come easily. At one point, his father suggests, not unkindly, that maybe the boy should just go run a telephone company and leave the big ideas to someone else. Vitelli does not want to run a telephone company. He goes to London instead, learns English, and falls in love with something his hometown does not really have yet: nightclubs. He comes back to Turin and opens one himself, a place called Tempio Sei, with a group of friends. It works, and it gives him something more valuable than the money it earns him. It gives him a taste for building something from scratch. He takes that nightclub money, adds his student savings, and in March of 1969, at 21 years old, he starts a business renting sailboats along the Italian coast. He is still in school. He has no factory, no shipyard, not even a boat he built himself. What he has is a name, Azimut, and a habit of treating customers like people he actually wants to see again. The rentals turn into something else, almost by accident. People keep asking him how to get a boat of their own. So he starts bringing in boats from other builders, Northern European and English shipyards, and selling them under his own name in Italy. He graduates in 1970 with a degree in economics. He takes his fledgling company to the Genoa Boat Show that same year, and a builder called Amerglass, then the most advanced shipyard in Europe, chooses Azimut to bring its boats into the Italian market. He still owns no factory. He is at this point essentially a very good matchmaker between European builders and Italian buyers who trust him. That changes in 1974. Vitelli commissions a British naval architect, Bernard Olesinski, to design a boat that will carry the Azimut name as its own creation, not someone else's import. It is a 43-footer, built in fiberglass, at a moment when most of his Italian competitors are still working in wood. The boat sells. It sells well enough that Vitelli keeps going, pushing the size up year after year through subcontracted builders, chasing a market that has not fully decided fiberglass can be trusted at scale. By 1982, his Feilaka series stretches past 30 meters, the largest fiberglass boats ever produced to that point. The buyers are not casual weekend boaters anymore. A Middle Eastern prince buys one. So does the Onassis family. The kid who rented sailboats out of a converted nightclub fortune is now selling to some of the wealthiest families on the planet, and he still does not own a single shipyard. That is the gap Vitelli is staring at in 1985, the year Benetti collapses. Nabila made Benetti famous and broke it at the same time. The bill for building the world's most extravagant yacht landing on a company that could not absorb it. 112 years of Italian shipbuilding history, a yard that had quietly built vessels for monarchs long before anyone outside Italy had heard the name Benetti, sitting in bankruptcy, radioactive to anyone with sense. Vitelli does not have sense, not in the cautious way. He has a fiberglass production company with no heavy shipyard, staring at a heavy shipyard with no production discipline, and he can see the shape of something neither company can build alone. He buys Benetti. He restructures it from the ground up. In 1988, he opens a brand new, modern facility at Avigliana, built around the lessons Azimut learned scaling fiberglass production, and he starts feeding Benetti the same manufacturing precision that built the Feilaka line, while keeping the custom craftsmanship that made Benetti famous in the first place. By 1998, the first fiberglass Benetti series sells 100 units in a decade. a number that would have sounded like fiction to the bankruptcy lawyers a few years earlier. What Vitelli has actually built, without fully naming it yet, is two companies doing the work of one machine. Azimut on the production side, fast, efficient, fiberglass at scale, selling boats from 30 to over 100 feet to a growing global middle class of boat owners. Benetti on the custom side, building the kind of 100-meter super yachts that take years and cost more than most companies are worth for clients who do not ask the price twice. Most of the boating industry in this era is heading the opposite direction, consolidating, brands getting bought and folded into conglomerates that have never built a boat in their lives, brand names kept alive mostly as labels on a balance sheet. Vitelli goes the other way. He keeps Azimut-Benetti private. He keeps it in the family. While other historic names spend the 80s and 90s getting absorbed by holding companies headquartered nowhere near the water, Vitelli is opening shipyards in Savona, in Viareggio, in Livorno, in Fano, eventually in Brazil, and signing every decision himself. Vitelli is not content to just build boats while this is happening. From 1998 to 2006, he serves as president of Italy's National Association of Boating Manufacturers. The kind of unpaid, unglamorous post that mostly involves lobbying lawmakers about leasing rules and import regulations. He uses it anyway, pushing through legislation that makes yacht leasing viable in Italy for the first time, work that quietly grows the entire domestic industry around him, not just his own company. He spends years as Norway's honorary consul, a strange detail for a man who built his fortune on Italian coastlines. And for 2.5 years, he even sits in the Italian parliament. None of it slows the boats down. If anything, it sharpens his instinct for where the industry is heading before his competitors notice. He is one of the first major builders to push diesel-electric propulsion into yachting, borrowing technology that other industries had already proven. And decades later, it is his daughter who turns that same instinct toward hybrid and low-emission hulls, a straight line running from the father's bets to the daughter's. The numbers compound in a way that is almost boring to recite and staggering to actually sit with. By the 2000s, Azimut-Benetti is topping the global order book, the industry's ranking of who is actually building the most large yachts, and it does not lose that ranking. Not for 1 year, not for 5. It holds the top spot for 25 consecutive years, a streak with no real precedent in the industry. The group expands into Fraser, the yacht brokerage and charter business, buying a stake in 2004 and full ownership by 2017, before selling it off again in 2019 once it has served its purpose. Annual revenue climbs past €1 billion. The company sells across 70 countries, 95% of its production going abroad, while still building almost everything inside Italy. 2,000 people work directly inside the shipyards. Another 5,000 depend on the supply chain wrapped around them. None of it is owned by Brunswick or any other outside conglomerate. All of it still traces back to a 21-year-old with nightclub money and a stack of rental sailboats. Vitelli never stops thinking about what comes after him, and he starts moving early. His daughter Giovanna joins the board of directors in the year 2000, while the company is still mid-climb. She comes from a background in law, not boats, and for the first few years, her role looks more ceremonial than central. That changes by 2004, when she steps into new model development and starts leading research efforts in earnest, the unglamorous work of deciding what the company builds 5 years from now, instead of what it ships this quarter. Over 2 decades, she works her way deeper into the parts of the business that actually decide its future: corporate strategy, product design, the long bet on hybrid and electrified propulsion that becomes a defining theme of the 2020s. There is a particular kind of pride Vitelli describes feeling the first time he showed his own father an Azimut balance sheet, proof that the boy who could not sit still in school had built something real. Decades later, he gets to feel the mirror image of that pride, watching his own daughter run the company well enough that handing it over never feels like a risk. By 2023, the handoff is no longer theoretical. Giovanna Vitelli becomes chair of the Azimut-Benetti Group. Her father is still alive, still president, still in the room. There is no scramble, no boardroom drama, no outside buyer circling the family for a piece of it. A father simply hands his daughter the company he built from a nightclub and a stack of borrowed sailboats and watches her run it. He does not get long to watch. On December 31st, 2024, Paolo Vitelli dies after a fall at his home in Valle d'Aosta. He is 77 years old. Tributes arrive from across an industry he spent 55 years shaping, calling him a titan, a visionary, the man who taught Italian yachting to think in fiberglass instead of wood, and in decades instead of seasons. By then, the company he started with the proceeds of a single nightclub is worth more than €1 billion a year in revenue. The largest builder of yachts over 24 meters on the planet, still privately held, still run by his own family, with order books stretched out years into the future. Most of the great boat companies in this story end up the same way. Built by one obsessive founder, grown past the point any single family can finance, and eventually sold off piece by piece to whichever conglomerate is buying that decade. The names survive. The control does not. Azimut never takes that exit. The nightclub money becomes rental boats. The rental boats become an import business. The import business becomes a fiberglass builder with no shipyard, until it buys the most prestigious bankrupt shipyard in Italy and turns the gamble into the biggest luxury yacht company in the world. And when it finally comes time to hand it over, there is no holding company waiting in the wings, no private equity firm circling with a term sheet, no auction. There is just a daughter, already in the room, already running the parts that matter, taking the wheel from a father who built an empire out of a side hustle and never once sold a share of it to anyone outside his own family. The boy whose own father once doubted he could run anything more complicated than a phone company ends up handing his daughter the largest luxury yacht empire on earth, fully intact, with his name still on the door.